there, my name is David Duford, owner and founder of BuyLifeInsuranceForBurial.com, where I help people like you find quality life insurance for your life insurance needs. Today's topic is the complete guide to getting life insurance for organ transplant patients. I would presume safely that you are on this video watching today because you have looked high and low for information on how to get yourself or a loved one life insurance coverage despite having a history of an organ transplant. So this particular video is made just for you. As you will see here momentarily, we're going to go into a deep dive, a very detailed analysis about all the questions that I've ever heard somebody who's had an organ transplant ask me as a life insurance agent. So hopefully by the end of this, all your questions as it relates to what you can qualify for, how to qualify for, what the limitations of coverage might be, what companies are out there, and much more as far as questions go will be answered by the end of this video and article. So please stay tuned and let's get started. So let's talk about overview today of what to expect. I'm going to formally introduce myself and my company to you if you've never watched any other of my educational videos for life insurance consumers. And we're going to start after that by answering the simple question of can you get life insurance as a transplant? And then we're going to answer why would one get life insurance as a transplant, as there's more than one reason. There's a multitude of them, and we want to make sure we cover them all. We also want to discuss what kind of transplants qualify for life insurance. Some people believe that some type of life insurance is only eligible for certain transplants and others are not. We'll dispel those concerns and questions momentarily. We'll also talk about what type of life insurance an organ transplant can qualify for. There's a lot of different life insurance programs out there. Which ones you qualify for depends upon a few examples, a few issues, and we'll cover those in a minute. We'll also answer how must transplants be to qualify for life insurance. Some transplants are young, some transplants aren't as young. We'll answer those questions within a few moments here. How does life insurance coverage work for transplants? So we'll cover exactly how the life insurance plans operate down to the fine print of the life insurance policy. You know exactly what to expect and how it works. You'll get the pros of how these life insurance policies work, and you also will get the cons of how these life insurance options work. I'm an agent, and my goal here is to present to you the facts. And as much as I want to tell you that life insurance is great and everything is wonderful, there's always drawbacks to everything, so we'll make sure to cover that in the interest of being transparent. Afterwards, we're going to talk about can you qualify for term life insurance as a transplant. A lot of people are familiar with the idea or concept of term life insurance, so we'll make sure to cover that. Then we'll talk about how much life insurance coverage an organ transplant patient can actually purchase. Sometimes they think it's very minimal. It actually isn't, and it's actually much more flexible than you might imagine. Then we'll talk about what options at different ages are available for life insurance. Then we'll talk about the process to qualify for the life insurance coverage, and then discuss the next steps if you feel that how this particular life insurance program works for organ transplants is sensible for you and your loved one. I'll tell you how to take the next steps in getting qualified for a life insurance plan. So a little bit about myself. My name is David Duford. I am the owner and operator of Buy Life Insurance at BuyLifeInsuranceForBurial.com. I have been a licensed life insurance agent since 2011. I've actually helped well over 3,000 families with their life insurance needs since I've entered this business. And the reason I share that with you is that my experience with folks with health issues in particular, since most of my clients are over 50, is quite wide-ranging. Organ transplants is one of many health issues I've dealt with. I understand these companies and who will take you and who won't. So that's kind of the value I bring to the table in the form of experience. I'm also the author of the official guide to buying final expense insurance. You can see it over there to the left. It is a book that I published that talks about the ideas behind what a final expense life insurance policy is, what the details are to those policies, and what you need to be aware of before you make a purchase decision. You can find it over at Amazon. I'm also, in addition to all that, a life insurance agency owner. I recruit agents and train them nationally in all different states across this great nation on how to help people with their life insurance and final expense life insurance needs. And lastly, but not leastly, I am married and have 4 kids with the 4th one due 2 months from now. So wish us luck. So let's talk about the question you're probably wondering. Can you get life insurance coverage as an organ transplant? The short answer is yes. You can get quality life insurance coverage as an organ transplant. Now, the fact is it's difficult to get coverage because there are some considerations. Let's face it, you've had an organ transplant. It's a pretty serious operation, pretty serious surgery, and there's considerations to make because you have to take medications the rest of your life and manage things in a different way than before the organ transplant. So there's going to be some outside factors that influence the ability to get coverage. And so understand that it is tougher, although not impossible, to get coverage for folks who had organ transplants. Again, due to the severity of what you went through having an organ transplant. So let's talk about why it's actually extremely important to get life insurance coverage as an organ transplant patient. So look, just because you had this organ transplant, it doesn't mean that your days are numbered, that you're going away anytime soon. And it certainly doesn't mean that those financial problems that you have just magically get washed away. They're still there before and after the surgery, and they still have to be managed, and they still have to have some way of solving them. And when I say financial obligations, of course, I'm speaking about mortgages. You've got probably a 6-figure mortgage on your house. If you die, then it's on your spouse to pay for, and if that changes your income, can she pay for it? So very real circumstance that you have to consider. Also debts. Do you owe money? Do you owe money on loans? Do you owe money on credit cards? Do you need to pay in case you don't have enough time to fund your kids' college? There's a reason to have life insurance, and it can play an important role if you leave earlier than expected. And finally, and what many people purchase these kinds of plans for, is their final funeral expenses. What they need to pay for their burial or their cremation, or any last expenses that as soon as you walk out the door, the policy comes in to pay. That's the real need of a life insurance plan. And what you have to ask yourself is, what are those needs? What are those obligations if you walk out the door? What obligations walk in and must be handled? And again, all these particular situations we all are going to face. If we have families, if we have loved ones, if we own homes, if we have to die, again, we are going to die, so there's going to be some kind of expense before we leave. Again, the problem is all of these things to cover and all of these things to pay for when we pass away if it's an untimely death or earlier than expected. Most of us don't have the money just laying around to pay for the deaths. You see, that's the thing. Life insurance comes into play because it substitutes the need for liquidity or having cash on hand to pay these things. Life insurance does an amazing job at covering otherwise daunting and very expensive obligations. And that's why people own life insurance, and that's why you should too. Because if you have obligations from something as little as a cremation debt or a burial debt all the way up to a mortgage or something more, life insurance plays an important role in paying that. And as I said earlier, as you walk out, your life insurance policy walks in and covers these types of debts. So the people that you love aren't shackled with debts that you took. And you are not putting them in harm's way and making their life really tough. So life insurance, as we say, is an act of love. One buys life insurance because they love their spouse, they love their kids, and they don't want to burden them with any kind of obligations that prevent them from achieving the maximum amount of success that they can experience in life. And that's why life insurance is a great thing. That's why I sell it and why I believe in it. And the last point I'll put in here is that life expectancy is something that you have to face straightforward. There's no other way around it. It's a touchy subject. Having an organ transplant has limited and will limit your lifespan on average than those who don't. I know it's hard to hear that. I know you've probably thought about this, but we have to face the facts. You probably have less time than you did before the organ transplant. So you have to be prepared. And there really isn't any sort of time to delay to get prepared. You just need to figure out what kind of policy is best, how does it fit with what you're trying to accomplish, and do you feel comfortable with all the details. Obviously you do, and you're on board to some extent because you're watching this video or reading the forthcoming article, and you understand implicitly or explicitly the importance of life insurance. So I don't need to hark on that. But hey, it's something to consider and remind ourselves. We all are terminal. We just don't know when the day is. Now, what kind of organ transplants qualify for life insurance? I put this in here because there's a lot of different heart issues. There's a lot of different organ transplant scenarios. It's not just heart transplants. You could also you may have a liver transplant. Maybe you had severe liver disease and they took out the old one and put a new one in. Same thing with heart disease. Maybe you had a history of ongoing heart problems and heart attacks, and you became a candidate for a heart transplant and you got it. Also lung transplants. I met a gentleman who had a double lung transplant. It's incredible. And he's getting around, walking around just fine. It's amazing. The medical state of affairs is just absolutely amazing and fantastic, isn't it? Just what we can do to extend the lives of people is amazing. Kidney transplants, pancreas transplants, intestine transplants. In short, the answer is very simple. When you ask what kind of organ transplants can qualify for life insurance, I'm going to tell you they all can. There's nobody from this list that can be declined coverage as long as the applicant meets the medical requirements and fits the age range for the life insurance product. So the good news is it's actually easier of the two conditions here to medically qualify because the companies we use are very flexible with these particular type of transplant situations. Any transplant situation actually, and the question becomes, do we have a product that extends to the age that you're at? More oftentimes than not we do, but again, it's worth mentioning here that we can get you policy. We can get you policy in most circumstances, and it doesn't matter what kind of transplant you have. You do have options, and you definitely have access in most circumstances, assuming age fits, to quality life insurance coverage. So you may be wondering also, what is the best life insurance company for an organ transplant? So it's important to quantify what best means, okay? Best what? Best can mean all sorts of things. And what I realize is, as a life insurance agent, best is an individual description and definition. So let me give you my personal way that I evaluate what the best life insurance company is for my clients. So first of all, the best life insurance company for organ transplant patients should consist of the following. First of all, we want to know it will cover you, okay? So this is the most challenging aspect to accomplish beyond the age issue. As long as the person can get approved, that's the biggest hurdle to jump over, probably 80% of it. So that's a great company. I'd call that the best if I had a kidney transplant and they approved me for coverage. So we want one that's going to cover you. We also have to consider affordability, of course. A lot of people watching this might be disabled from the organ transplant or on a fixed income. And if you don't have significant savings, affordability is more of a concern. So budget's always something important, and we don't want to spend more than we have to on life insurance if we can get an equivalent deal elsewhere. And then lastly, and this is important too, it needs to effectively meet your life insurance goals. So what do I mean by that? Well, you've got to be able to define what your problems financially are, in the sense of, what if I die? What kind of obligations are left behind? And once we've defined that, then it's a matter of finding the policy that best matches the solution. So you want to make sure whatever policy you buy does do that, because as soon as it does, then you've got a good policy. You've got the best policy, again, for an organ transplant, just like I described. So these three criteria are what I'm most concerned with when talking to a patient who's had organ transplants of any kind to get them good coverage. So here's the truth. Most life insurance companies are reputable, have existed for decades, even centuries, and can mostly be trusted. And so I say this because there's several options for coverage. And normally it doesn't really come down to which company is a little bit better in its brand than others, because the products they represent are identical to each other when it comes down to it when an organ transplant is applying for life insurance coverage. So it's less about the company as it is about what product it is and at what price you can get it at. So either way, let's take a look at a few carriers that can take organ transplant patients and kind of give you a little background on them. So first one, you've probably heard of this company. If you're over 50, you're getting junk mail from them. If you are a TV watcher of any sorts, you're going to see all sorts of advertisements. Colonial Penn was founded in 1968, headquartered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And most people know them by Alex Trebek from Jeopardy! He is the official endorser. He has been for years. That talks about how the policies work. Now, what I find with the plan that can accept an organ transplant for life insurance is that pricing typically is much higher than what you can get through than an agent like myself. Why is that the case? Because Colonial Penn doesn't use agents. They have to display advertisements nationally, which costs millions of dollars, on top of hiring professional endorsers to extol the virtues of the product. All of that costs a lot of money. And the way that businesses recoup that investment in marketing and advertising and selling is to increase their prices on the premiums. So my experience has been Colonial Penn is pretty hefty on the prices. I usually don't recommend them, but if you want to check out the prices for yourself, go to colonialpenn.com. You can run some quotes in about 2 or 3 minutes. Next on the list, we have MetLife Guaranteed Acceptance Life Insurance. They were founded in 1868, based out of New York City. And MetLife does a lot of products. They're a really good company. They do annuities, they do life insurance, they do, I believe, long-term care insurance, indemnity products. They've got a whole suite of products. Very good company. And the particular product that they offer is very much like Colonial Penn. They sell it over the television. They send you junk mail about it, and it tends to skew higher. And I believe the reason they're doing this, just my opinion, is they're a brand name company, and they're paying for all these ads, and that costs money, and they've got to recoup that money and invest it in marketing. Physicians Mutual, founded in 1902. They're headquartered out of Omaha, Nebraska. Same just like MetLife, offers a variety of products. These guys are actually a little bit more competitive on pricing for those people interested in qualifying for life insurance with a history of organ transplants. You can check quotes at Physicians Mutual for more information. Now, AIG is a company that you probably have heard of. They used to be American General Life Insurance, another good life insurance company. AIG bought them out, so they just use the AIG brand. They were founded in 1919, also headquartered in New York City. Personally, this is the life insurance plan that I use for my clients when we have a situation where an organ transplant individual is looking for quality or affordable life insurance coverage. So they've got the best rates for what we call brokers. I'm a broker in the insurance business. That's defined as somebody who represents different life insurance carriers. I'm not married to one in particular. So the advantage to the client is that I can pick and choose the companies that are going to be the best overall value for my clients. Generally speaking, AIG offers the most competitively priced rates for organ transplant patients for all the ages it's made available. And so therefore, when I have somebody who's at an organ transplant and they're trying to qualify for life insurance, I try to put them into AIG if they fit the bill as far as age goes. And you're probably wondering, okay, they're a good price, what are the rates? We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to cover a few more last minute issues here, questions that usually pop up at this point, and then we'll definitely show you the rates that AIG does, and then I'll give you a little perspective around them. So you may be asking, okay, you're telling me, Dave, that I can get life insurance even though I've had an organ transplant, and that seems a little unusual, potentially. How do these plans work? Because maybe you've tried with different insurance companies and have been told there's no way. So here's the thing. Due to the severe nature of an organ transplant, there is only one option for life insurance coverage. That option is called Guaranteed Acceptance Life Insurance. Let me describe to you what that means. It also can be used, words interchangeably, no questions asked life insurance or guaranteed issue life insurance. That's the same exact thing. They're all the same exact thing as guaranteed acceptance life insurance. So even if I interchange those words, no, it's the same thing that I'm just about to describe. So all guaranteed acceptance life insurance coverage is what's known as whole life insurance. It's a whole life insurance plan. The benefits of the plan are pretty simple. the idea behind a whole life insurance plan on a guaranteed acceptance basis is that they're designed to give peace of mind on an affordable basis without the downsides of another kind of plan like term insurance, which is designed to terminate. Term terminates. And a lot of people don't like that because they may outlive the coverage. And we'll talk about term. You may be thinking, well, maybe term is right for me. We'll talk about that as well. I've got a whole slide on that, and we'll kind of pull the layer of the onion back on that as well. Now, let's talk about pros and cons, starting with pros of a guaranteed acceptance life insurance for organ transplants. So here are the benefits. So a guaranteed acceptance plan, by definition, does not ask health questions. What this specifically means is that when you get the application, you fill out all your personal information. You fill out the payment information. You'll turn the pages back and forth. You'll see no health questions. All you need is the ability to sign your name to the policy or the application for coverage. And as long as it gets processed, again, there's nothing related to health, including smoking, you will be approved for the plan. This is really important for those of you who have had organ transplants. Why? Because organ transplants virtually are knocked out of all insurance companies that ask health questions. In fact, I work with probably 15 insurance companies, most of which ask these health questions. And I can tell you, as you're looking at the paper application, you're reading the health questions, it's usually by the third question on the knockout questions. You will see, have you ever had any kind of organ transplants ever in your life? And when you see that, you have to say yes, and that cancels your ability to get anything at all with these companies. You're literally declined coverage. That is the norm. So with the guaranteed acceptance policy, it's a lot better because you're guaranteed to be approved because there's no questions asked. And for organ transplant patients, this is a definite blessing. There's also, because there's no health questions asked, there's no medical exam. Many people wonder, geez, are they going to stick me with a needle? Are they going to draw out blood? Am I going to have to pee in a cup? Is some stranger going to come over here and do all this to me? Or I have to go to some office? Don't have to do that at all. All that's required is very simple. All that's required is to basically sign off on an application over the phone or on the computer and send it in a couple of days it's approved. That's it. There's also the actual direct benefits of a whole life, no questions asked life insurance plan is the premiums never increase. So when you're quoted the coverage, when the agent shows you what you can qualify for and you see it and you select whatever one you do, that premium is locked in place. By definition, the contract for life insurance, for a whole life plan, for a no questions asked life insurance plan, for a organ transplant, the premiums are locked in place for the remainder of your life. As long as you keep up with the policy, you keep it in force, the premiums will never increase under any circumstances. Additionally, now this is useful. I have heard of people complaining about their life insurance canceling because their health changed for the worst. Whole life insurance, by contract, do not ever cancel because of age or health. So you take out this life insurance plan, you're guaranteed accepted, and let's say you've had a kidney transplant, and then a year later you have a stroke. You're still alive. You're affected by it. Maybe you can't speak anymore. It's a serious stroke. Does that change anything with your policy? Absolutely not. There's nothing changed whatsoever because you took this plan out before any of the health issues happening after the fact. So everything that's based off of taking this plan out is based off of the moment in time and what happened prior to that, not anything after. So as long as you pay your premiums, you have the coverage and it's in force. And like I said, it's a simple yes-no application. It usually takes a few days to get approved. I wrote up an 84-year-old lady in Florida the other day. It literally took a week before she got her policy, and she had health questions. So they actually had to check her health history, pull her medical records, look at her prescription history, and then they gave the decision she was approved. Whereas with you, if you are going to get one of these guaranteed acceptance plans, they don't do all that. They just say, okay, signed, everything matches up, it's a real person, see their social security number, approved, send off, and the policy is issued. So it's real simple, I guess that's my point. So we've talked about pros. Let's talk about the cons, because I want to present all the facts to you. I'm passionate about life insurance. I really believe in it. You're here because you believe in life insurance too, and you're just trying to find out the facts. So what are the drawbacks to a guaranteed acceptance life insurance plan for organ transplant patients? Well, now you know the pros. Let's talk about the biggest drawback. And I can't be more clear than this. The biggest drawback for organ transplant patients when they buy a no questions asked life insurance policy is that there is no coverage from the first day. So when you take out this plan, what happens is, yes, you're approved for coverage, but there is a waiting period. Depends on the company, depends on the state sometimes you live in. There's a waiting period for coverage until it comes into full effect. What does that mean? For accidental deaths, if you die by accident, you're killed in a motorcycle wreck, you die in a car wreck, and it's not your fault, it's an accident, they'll pay the full amount off from the first day. It's only in natural death causes where first day full coverage doesn't take effect till usually several years later. So if you died within the first couple of years, depending on what period of time there is before you're fully covered, only the premiums you paid in plus interest are paid to your beneficiary. So if you paid $50 a month, you died in the 10th month, 50 times 10 is 500 plus 10% interest, it would be $550 paid to your beneficiary. Now here's the thing. A lot of these plans that are available out there that you may have run across have 3, even 4-year waiting periods, which I think is insane, until your coverage for natural death comes into full effect. I work with carriers like AIG and others where the coverage comes into effect in 2 years. You want the shortest period possible before your coverage is in full effect. You don't want to unnecessarily wait until you have coverage, right? You want to get this thing over with as fast as possible. And so you want insurance companies that cover you as quickly as possible from the day you take the policy out. And those are the preferential carriers that I want to work with. Now, I know, again, you may be hearing this, you may have recognized this already, and quite frankly, you might think, well, that's not what I want. Do I really want to wait 2 years before I'm fully covered? Yeah, it's better than 3 or 4, but why wait at all? If I buy life insurance, shouldn't I be covered right away? And these are reasonable feelings to feel. I totally understand where you're coming from, and I'm going to try to appeal to you why, even if there is a waiting period, why something like this still is a sensible purchase decision. So let's talk about that. Why would this be sensible? So the only situation where I can recommend these kind of policies, these no questions asked life insurance policies, is when the client cannot qualify for anything else. We've literally exhausted our search for life insurance. I've asked all the health questions. I've researched all the carriers, and I just cannot do anything better than one of these 2-year waiting period policies. That's when I recommend a guaranteed acceptance life insurance policy. Here's the thing with organ transplant patients. It's a tough pill to swallow, but on my experience, again, dealing with more than 3,000 families in my career, you will never qualify for anything other than a guaranteed acceptance life insurance policy as an organ transplant patient. There, and again, all said and done, every single company I have ever laid eyes on, I've ever worked with, knocks out organ transplants when there are health questions involved. Even if it's been a period of time since the organ transplant was put in. All organ transplant patients take anti-rejection drugs, and those drugs are knockout medications on the list for each carrier that's out there. So I hate to say it, but the only option that you're going to run into is these kind of guaranteed acceptance life insurance plans. But here's my appeal. You're only looking at 2 years where you're not fully covered for natural death, although you're covered for accidental death. And if all you can qualify for is a no questions asked life insurance plan, look, you got to believe in the concept of something is better than nothing. A lot of transplants live long lives. Sure, their life expectancy is shorter than someone who hasn't had one, but that doesn't mean you can't live a fulfilling and longer life than had you not had gotten it. And many times, like for kidneys, I've seen that depending if they get the type of kidney they get, they can live 10 years, up to 20 years, whether or not they had dialysis. A lot of the life expectancy for organ transplants is 10 years plus. since we're looking at 2 years here, to me it's a worthwhile consideration looking at a policy like this because the odds are really in your favor. And look, there's just no other way to get coverage. And these obligations don't go away when you do. So despite the limitation, the problem is still the problem. The premium, paying the premium, is the solution. You see it, the problems are still going to be there whether or not you have the life insurance, but you can do a lot better solving those problems by paying the premium for a life insurance plan. And with the right plan in 2 years, again, you'll have full coverage. You cannot be turned down for any reason. And even if your health worsens, you have the peace of mind knowing you've got coverage, and that's worth every single penny. Ask the families of the bereaved that I've talked to that had these plans and their loved one died. They're so thankful they had it. And that's why I'm appealing to you like this, because you may have some initial frustration. Maybe you don't. It'd be great if you didn't. But we're all human, and I know how insurance companies work. I've been on the same side you have with auto insurance and that kind of thing. And you want to make sure you get a good deal. But if you look at the whole big picture, even with a waiting period policy, this is a great solution to consider. So what about term insurance? A lot of people think, okay, well, whole life is probably expensive. What about term insurance? Can I get it without any questions asked? So some organ transplant patients believe a term insurance plan might be a better deal than a whole life insurance plan. I can lay the blame squarely on the financial gurus on TV and on radio that whenever life insurance is mentioned, they call whole life insurance a ripoff. And I think it's a shame because it's always taken out of context. Because how can anybody know each individual person's financial situation, their health situation, or their goals? I understand how these gurus think, and I understand the reasoning why they like term over other life insurance alternatives. But, look, it's not just about price, it's also about can you actually get coverage. And with term insurance, here's the thing. With term insurance, the unfortunate reality is that with term, there's going to be more in-depth underwriting in order to get you approved for coverage. And they look in depth. And just like I mentioned, historically, term insurance does not accept applicants with an organ transplant history. So even if you apply to a term policy, they'll look at your organ transplant history, they'll look at your prescription history, and they won't approve you for coverage. And truly, the only option available if you've had an organ transplant and you're looking for quality life insurance is a whole life insurance plan that does not ask questions. That is the end-all be-all for you as someone who's had an organ transplant or for a loved one that you're looking to get insurance on. So let's talk about guaranteed acceptance life insurance rates. You may be wondering what this is going to cost, what this looks like. I'm going to show you my rates from AIG, which again is the preferred company I work with organ transplant applicants as long as they can fit the age range. So real quick, what we're looking at is 5-year increments, 50, 55, all the way to 85 for males and females. This is there's no consideration for smokers here, so it's for smokers and non-smokers. Also, the rates are different between each age range here. So the 51 is going to be slightly higher than the 50. The 84 is going to be slightly less expensive than the 85. So this is just a quick sample. And like I said earlier, we can go down to $5,000 in coverage. We can go up to $25,000 in coverage. Or we can really do whatever it is that you're looking for within that range and even beyond. And I'm going to talk about if you need more coverage than that, how you can do it. But if you just look at the sample price range, this is pretty affordable stuff. I've seen insurance carriers that have double the prices for the same amount of coverage, which is crazy. And with combination with AIG's good record and their trustworthy background, this is a good combination of price and the selection of company. If you're 60 years old, $10,000 is $63.17 for male. 60 years old for females, $45.14. And these are premiums that never go up. And the coverage is fully in effect after 2 years for natural causes. So really good stuff. So building on the kind of point I just mentioned, you may be wondering, well, how much coverage can I purchase as an organ transplant? Maybe your needs are small. Maybe your needs are large. Either way, you want to know what your options are, right? So the good news is there's lots of flexibility. Even if you just want a small plan to cover a direct cremation, most direct cremations, that's defined as you just get cremated, There may be a small service or wake and an earn, and that's it. There's no fanfare. It's just enough to do the job. You can purchase one of these plans for as little as $1,000 to $2,000. That's all it takes. Or if you need a larger amount of coverage, you have a larger obligation covered. Maybe it's a mortgage. Maybe it's some other kind of financial obligations. You can go up to $100,000 in coverage or more. And the way that we do this is we apply for multiple life insurance companies. There's no law or rule or regulation saying you can't own more than one life insurance policy. So we can take out multiple policies with these guaranteed acceptance life insurance companies and stack the policies to how much ever coverage you want. Usually the minimum or the maximum for guaranteed acceptance life insurance is $25,000 in coverage, but sometimes they go a little higher. But either way, in the end of the day, if you need more than that $25,000, we can do it. And we do it by stacking. A perfect example, I have a lady in town where I live. She's 60 years old. She had a high level of interest in life insurance, and she bought these final expense life insurance policies from me. And we had to stack 6 or 7 different life insurance plans in order to get the kind of coverage she wanted. She had some serious health problems. She couldn't qualify for normal coverage, and this was the solution to her problem. And the carriers didn't care. They didn't fight it tooth and nail. They just took the plans out as I recommended. So if she can do it, you can do it. And but remember, it all comes down to what your individual goals are and what you're looking to accomplish. So let's talk about age range here. So we want to talk about what's available at different age ranges, because guaranteed acceptance is kind of funny at certain age ranges. So I want to make sure that we covered what is actually available from 20 years old and beyond. So this is the toughest range for organ transplants. If you're between the ages of 20 or 30 to get a no questions asked life insurance companies coverage. There are a few companies, depending on the state that you live in, that will write somebody with a 2, sometimes a 3-year waiting period policy. Again, sometimes that's just the best option we can get. Premium's generally okay, it's just there's a longer waiting period. And again, I can't tell you what the options would be until I speak with you individually and gather all the facts and information. Hopefully you can understand that. Best way to figure all this out is to send me a message or give me a call at 888-626-0439. I'll speak with you personally and tell you what your options are. Now, taking a step up to the 30 to 40-year-old range, it's still tough, but it's still possible. There's still a few more carriers in this age range that will do 2 or 3 year waiting period policies on a no questions asked basis. Again, you got to give me a call. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes. I can tell you specifically what we can do, and that's all it takes in order to figure out what the options are. So here's where it gets easy. When you hit age 40, there's guaranteed acceptance life insurance plans easily available in most states for an affordable premium. I work with one in particular. It's out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and you can get guaranteed acceptance life insurance as long as you're 40 years old, all the way up with this particular company to $40,000 in coverage. So very good, very useful, and it's something I can help you with. So again, if you fit that bill and this is what you're looking for, this is where you should call, and I can give you some exact numbers on pricing and coverage. Okay, so if you're 50 to 80, that's probably the easiest range to get guaranteed acceptance life insurance for organ transplant patients. There's all sorts of options. Again, my primary one that I use is AIG. That's the company that does the job at the best price within the 50 to 85-year-old range. Premiums never go up in price. Coverage never cancels because of age or health. And once you're past a 2-year waiting period policy, you're covered for natural death completely. And from the first day you take it out and make the first payment, you are covered for accidental death. So call for more information. If you're 80 or older, there are limitations in guaranteed acceptance life insurance. You'll find a lot of carriers cut off the requirements at 80. Good news is I have a carrier that goes all the way up to 85 that can get guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance. The benefits of the plans are exactly identical to what I've just described. Whole life insurance, rates never go up, coverage never cancels, and you cannot be declined for any health issues. And once you're past the 2 years, natural death is in full effect. Okay, so now that we're rounding down this presentation and you've seen the facts and the different situations that you're in as an organ transplant or a loved one who has had an organ transplant, let's talk about how to qualify for a life insurance policy as an organ transplant. So the application process is incredibly simple. There's no examinations. There's no medicals. There's no prodding and poking or any of that stuff. The first thing you need to do is to pick an agent you'd like to work with. Somebody you trust, somebody you like, somebody you feel like's giving you value. I'll nominate myself first. So I can help you with this stuff in most circumstances. I have the tools and carriers that will get you the solution you're looking for. Second, after your agent listens to your life insurance needs, let them draw up a quote, see what's out there. And then once accepted, it's very easy to apply for these no questions asked final expense plans that are available to organ transplants. You just simply do the phone interview over the phone. In most cases, you get an electronic application. You fill out through the email. There's no visit necessary by the agent. Everything's done electronically. It's super convenient. And what you're going to find is after several days, your coverage is approved. Again, they're not running medical examinations. They're not pulling doctor's records. They're not looking at your prescription history. They don't care. They just care that you're alive and you authorize that you're the person that you say you are. And as long as that checks out, which it should, you're approved for coverage. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, you get your policy in the mail. And you've solved the problem when it comes to your life insurance. And that's it. So let's talk about final steps. Hopefully I've won your favor over in helping you with your burial and life insurance needs. So if you'd like to learn more about how to qualify for final expense life insurance or anything like that if you're an organ transplant, there's two ways you can do this. You can go to my website. It's buylifeinsuranceforburial.com. Send me a message. I will give you a free quote, run some numbers, show you what the deal is. So then you can decide on your own if you prefer to communicate via email. The other option would be for you to call me. You can call me at 888-626-0439. If you don't get me live, leave a voicemail. I'm talking to people all day. I'm extremely busy with inbound calls. And if you leave a message, I will promise you I'll get back to it as quickly as possible. Or you can leave a comment below in the YouTube section. And please like this video and subscribe if you found everything that I've said is useful. So that concludes the training on getting life insurance coverage if you've had a history of an organ transplant. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to contact me if I can help you with anything related to final expense, life insurance, or burial insurance. My name is David Duford of Buy Life Insurance for Burial. Thank you so much. Goodbye.